How to compare estimates and not freak out. So you've started talking to a few app development agencies and kicked off the process of evaluating them and deciding who will be your vendor. Don't be surprised if you receive some very different estimates from the different companies you engage with. It's actually very common to find yourself with, for example, a 200-hour estimate from one company and 800 hours from another based on the exact same brief. There are various reasons why this happens, which I will discuss below. The main thing to remember, though, is that this is not an unusual situation. Ask questions. See if you can work out why the difference exists. Make sure that you are going to get both a fair price and a quality product. Compare the contract types. It can be helpful to start by checking that you're comparing the same sorts of contracts for a fixed scope of work, regardless of whether the developers manage to do the work in the estimated time or not. This incentivizes developers to estimate accurately and means that you can have confidence in exactly what you will get at the end of the process and exactly how much it will cost you. The downside, though, is that often the vendor will overquote to allow themselves some leeway. With a time and materials contract, in contrast, you pay only for the work done. At the same time, this style of contract leaves the door open for dishonest vendors to deliberately mislead the client about the amount of time a project is likely to require. Beware bad actors. We've actually seen this happen to a number of unfortunate businesses. They turned down our seemingly high fixed price quote because another vendor offered them a price based on a much lower number of hours on a time and materials contract. They based this estimate on the easiest possible version of the project and either don't provide a maximum or project an unreasonably low maximum figure for the project. Either way, they're not bound by the estimate because the project is done on a time and materials basis. Once the client is fully committed to the vendor, it only then becomes clear that their original estimate was much lower than required, and with hourly fees they soon end up paying much more than our original high quote. What causes the difference? Assuming, though, that everything is above board and you are comparing the same sort of contracts, you are still likely to find quite a bit of variation. Here are some of the reasons that might be the case. First off, they may have different assumptions about or approaches to the same bit of functionality. An original way of solving a technical problem quickly might put one organization in a position to make a lower offer because they know they will be able to handle the work at a faster rate. Similarly, if the developer has already made apps with the same or similar functionality, this experience might give them confidence in their ability to do the work more quickly. Depending on the relevance and legal status of the code, they may even be able to use past projects as a starting point of the new work. Secondly, it could be that one or both of the agencies has simply misjudged the complexity of the task. Sometimes the implementation of the feature turns out to be more complex or time intensive than expected, and the opposite can also be true. Ask the company with a bigger quote why it will take so long, then, armed with the info, ask the other vendor how they anticipate solving the problems mentioned. Thirdly, accurately estimating the number of hours involved in a project that might last for many months is a tricky task, and sometimes the developers themselves over or underestimate their own work speed. The larger the project scope, the higher the potential for these sorts of errors. At eCreative, we have internal tools in place to help improve developer time estimates, but even so, we'd always remind you that an estimate is exactly that and shouldn't be treated as a final number of work hours, though if you are on a fixed price contract, it won't affect you anyway. Taking it further. If you got any questions about how to compare development contracts or you have advice of your own to add, please do write comments in the section below, And if you want to get a quote from us for some development work you got upcoming, feel free to get in touch. If you want to read more about app development process, check out my previous article on how to choose the right vendor, or my intro to the topic of developing apps, which contains a list of the topics I've written and links to the relevant articles.